Die Glocke, Scene 15, Take 2000. Action.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the History and Mystery channel. I'm your host, Kammler, and I want you to like and subscribe. Now that you've done that, I want to delve into the story of one of the many secret Nazi projects. Die Glocke, or as they say in English, the bell. This secret superweapon was supposedly developed by the Germans during the war and ended up in either South America, Antarctica, or the United States after the war. Is it just a conspiracy or is it a fact? After watching this video, you will know more and choose what you believe. For our story of today, I made 5 chapters, and those chapters are 1. The German weapon projects and Wunderwaffen, Die Glocke, the creator Dr. Hans Kammler, what happened to the bell after the war, and what kind of evidence is there. So let's start with chapter 1. During World War II, the Germans became famous for their engineering projects, advanced weapon technologies, and their obsession with creating so-called Wunderwaffes, which is German for wonder weapons. As we know, the Germans made incredible high-tech weapons for the time, like the Messerschmitt Me-262, which was the world's first operational jet-powered fighter aircraft, the Bachem 349, another, which was a manned point defense rocket power interceptor, the Fieseler Fe-103R Reichenberg, which was a German manned version of the V-1 flying bomb, the V-2 rocket, which was the world's first ballistic missile, the Sverre Gustav, which was a gigantic railway gun. Because we knew that the Germans built these kinds of high-tech weaponry, many rumors started to spread that there were even more bigger and greater weapons developed by the Germans that were hidden away from the public. Even though the Allied powers won the war and no super Wunderwaffe saved the Germans from their defeat, many people would still claim that the weapons were made, that the governments of the Allied powers stole them and kept them hidden from the public. One of these so-called Wunderwaffens that would gain a lot of popularity was Die Glocke. Let's travel towards the German Reich of 1942, when the empire was at its height and occupied almost all of Europe, parts of Africa, and a big slice of the Soviet Union. The Germans felt unbeatable at the time, and they were searching for more ways to glorify their so-called empire of 1,000 years. One of the ways that they would try to do that was by building Wunderwaffens like Die Glocke, which is, according to legend, a UFO anti-gravity weapon hybrid. The legend tells us that the German SS division was in control of the construction of Die Glocke. Because the project was designated as top secret, it got developed far away from the public eye, deep inside of a Silesian mine in 1942. The SS would appoint multiple scientists to work on the project, which would become 4 meters, aka 12 feet high, and 3 meters, aka 9 feet in diameter. The scientists shaped it like a bell and incorporated 2 high-speed counter-rotating cylinders filled with a purplish liquid metal-looking substance that was supposed to be highly radioactive. The substance was codenamed Serum 525 and was violet or red in color. It is said that the Germans created Serum 525 by depriving it from a gem called the blue almasi, and after that they would process it with a rare ore called ogundium. It is said that both the gem and the ore came from Mount Kenya. What the weapon precisely does, we don't know, but what we do know is that there are multiple theories about it. Some of these theories are 1. That it was a UFO, an anti-gravity weapon, a time machine, or even a teleporter. Which is my favorite theory, because it does remind me of the teleporter they used in the Call of Duty Zombies map, Der Riese. It is said that in 1944 the SS would have taken the weapon towards a concrete ring called the Henge, which they had built near the Wenceslausen mine in 1943 or 1944. Upon arriving at the Henge, the SS would prepare the weapon for its first test. What the outcome of the test would have been, we don't know. But I think we can say that it was unsuccessful because we have not yet seen any records of the weapon being used during 1944 or 1945 on the battlefield. Hans Kammler was an SS Obergruppenführer and was responsible for multiple Nazi civil engineering projects, the construction of various gas chambers inside of concentration camps, and he oversaw the top secret free weapons program. But legend tells us that Hans oversaw one more thing, and that was the construction of the Wunderwaffe called Die Glocke. The conspiracy tells us that in 1944 Hans Kammler became the head of the newly formed Project Kronos, which was responsible for testing Die Glocke. It is said that the experiments were unsuccessful and that numerous scientists would die because of their exposure to radiation and Cesium-525. Once Hans learned that the tide of war had turned and that the Germans were now on the losing side, he would execute all the concentration camp inmates and all of the scientists that had worked on the project. He did this so that nobody could tell the Allied powers about this experiment. Besides keeping the weapons a secret, it is said that he would have put it on a U-boat bound for the secret Nazi base that was hidden on Neues Schwabenland, Antarctica. The date on which this must have been happened is unknown. What we do know is some of the whereabouts of Hans during the end of the war. Werner von Braun said that in April 1945 Hans was staying in Oberammergau, Bavaria. On the 16th of April, Hans sent a telegraph to Speer, Himmler and Göring, informing them of the creation of a message center in Munich. On the 23rd of April, Kammler sent a radio message towards Berlin, ordering his office manager to destroy the V1 equipment near Berlin and then go to Munich. On the 28th of April, he escaped Oberammergau while American troops were entering it. Many years later, during a sworn statement made by Kammler's driver, Kurt Broek, on the 16th of October 1959, Kurt would say that Kammler died on May the 10th, 1945, but that he did not know his cause of death. A couple years later, on the 7th of September 1965, Heinz Zune, a wartime aide of Kammler, stated that Kammler died of cyanide poisoning on May the 7th, 1945. Either way, his body was never found, and so the conspiracy stays alive. Did he really die, or did he escape like many other Nazis and fled to South America? There are two conspiracy theories on what has happened to Die Glocke after the war. Theory 1 is that either Hans Kammler or other SS members successfully relocated Die Glocke towards either Neuschwabenland, Antarctica or South America, after he ordered the execution of everybody else involved with the project. It is also said that multiple Nazi officials continued to use and experiment with Die Glocke while they were hiding in South America. It is said that Die Glocke became part of a secret Nazi space program that they used it to communicate with extraterrestrial beings. It is even believed by a handful of people that the Nazi leaders used Die Glocke to travel towards the Aldebaran solar system. I guess that if they used it for that, they must have stayed there, because the Nazi alien invasion has not started yet. In the second theory, they would claim that Hans Kammler gave the project to the Americans at the end of World War II, and that he would have used it as a bargaining tool to save his life. It is said that the Americans accepted the deal and also brought Kammler to the USA under the wings of Operation Paperclip. I guess if that's true, we shouldn't be surprised if we ever find out that Die Glocke is hidden away in Area 51. When World War II ended, the Allied powers organized the Nuremberg trials so that they could persecute multiple Nazi representatives for their war crimes. During the Nuremberg trials, they would predominantly persecute high-ranking Nazi officials and SSers. Multiple other trials around the world would focus their persecutions on the smaller names. One of these lesser-known Nazi criminals was a former Nazi SS Obergruppenführer named Jacob Sporenberg. Jacob was found guilty for the murder of 60 German engineers, scientists and technicians during his trial in a Polish court. During his trial, Sporenberg gave the court details of a Nazi bell project, calling it Die Glocke. He told the court that the scientists and engineers of this project were murdered on his command, so that the Germans could prevent the project from leaking out into the public. According to Sporenberg's affidavit, the bell was a highly advanced technology that produced a hissing or buzzing sound when operational. He noted that because of the sound, his fellow Germans referred to the bell as der Bienenstock, the German word for beehive. Our second source is a Polish author, editor and military journalist named Igor Witkowski. In 2003, Igor published a book named Prawda o Wunderwaffe. If we translate it to English, it says The Truth About the Wonder Weapon. In this book, Igor would write a detailed description of Die Glocke. In his book, Igor tells us that he discovered his first piece of evidence of Die Glocke in 1997. He would stumble on it while I was reading through multiple classified documents provided by a Polish court. During his research, he would find Sporenberg's court testimony in which he told the court that Germans had made a Wunderwaffe named Die Glocke. Witkowski also tells us that the anonymous source from within the Polish intelligence community provided him with classified documents that would prove the existence of Die Glocke. Unfortunately for us, Igor was not allowed to make any copies of the documents, so we would have to believe him on his word. In his book, Witkowski would also claim that 5 of the 7 early project engineers would die during his testing rounds. Just like I mentioned before, Igor would claim that the ruins of Die Glocke's testing site can be found in a concrete structure located in a Wenceslas mine close to the complex Sokolec subterranean project Riese works in Poland. According to Witkowski, the bell was eventually moved to a South American country governed by a group of Nazi sympathizers. I have to say, that sounds a lot like Argentina. Our second author, a military journalist that would write about Die Glocke, is a British man named Nick Cook. Nick would write and expand upon Witkowski's writings about Die Glocke in his own book, The Hunt for Zero Point. Cook does have a different ending than Witkowski, because he believes that Die Glocke ended up in the hands of the United States government because a deal between SS Obergruppenführer Hans Kammler and the US government. Our last author is named Henry Stevens, and he would write in his 2007 book Hitler's Suppressed and Still Secret Weapons, Science and Technology, that Die Glocke was powered by Cerium-525, also known as red mercury. In his book, Stevens would also talk about a German scientist named Otto Czerny, who would confess to the existence of Die Glocke. Otto would also claim that Die Glocke could be used as some kind of portal to look back in time. If Die Glocke actually existed, remains a mystery. What do you think? Is there enough evidence to prove its existence? Or is it nothing more than a nice story? I want to thank you all for listening. See you in the next one. And remember, history is written in mystery.